South Africa are waking up to the reality that they must now queue for food and fuel as we count the cost of days of rampant looting and deadly riots. These are fresh visuals from the skies above Durban this morning, showing the city's malls and warehouses in ruin. People are having to form long queues to get their hands on the most basic of necessities like bread. While the police regroup, thousands more soldiers are getting ready to be deployed to assist in keeping the peace in both Gauteng and KZN. At least 72 people have been reported dead so far, while 1,700 others have been in handcuffs. Some have already appeared in court. Well, as unrest and looting continues, let's take to the skies and try and see what's happening with our reporter Desin Tatia. But before we go to him, if the riots and looting in KwaZulu-Natal don't end today, the region stands to suffer a 20 billion rand loss. Yesterday, we were hearing of 15 billion rand lost into the GDP. Well, that's the warning from eThekwini Mayor Mdluli Kaunda. For the latest on the situation in Durban this morning, let's cross live to our reporter on the ground, Lethiwe Mdluli. Lethiwe, thanks so much for joining us. Tell us exactly where you are, what's happened overnight, and what you can see this morning.
Well, good morning, eNCA. At the moment, we are on the Durban CBD. Cleanup operations are currently underway, but right behind me, I'm going to step out of shot. I'm going to show you there are emergency services from eThekwini. The fire department is here. There's a building that is currently on fire from last night. They're telling us that this building has been burning since last night. It's alleged that the looters set it on fire while they were busy looting the store below it. I'm just going to ask my camera to walk with me. I just want to show you exactly what is currently happening. At the moment, there are other people on the street trying to basically clean up the CBD. They've been here since yesterday. Word got out on social media and a group of people gathered and started cleanup operations, but the looting is still ongoing. Some looters are coming back overnight and they start looting the shops, just trying to find something that they can take home. Earlier on this morning, we were in Mobeni Heights, where people were still looting, and last night we were there as well. The police did come with the members of the SANDF, but as soon as they left, the looters came back and they were basically taking out a lot of food from those warehouses in Mobeni on South Coast Road. So I'm just going to ask my camera to go in a little bit and show you exactly what is currently happening here on the Durban CBD. This building used to be a Mr. Price building, and the fire started here, but now it has spread and the whole building is now on fire.
Lethiwe, any idea of where the police or SANDF were last night while this looting and fires or arson was taking place?
Well, Annika, I'm actually having a bit of trouble hearing you, but when we went to South Coast Road last night, we didn't see any police at that moment. But a bit later on, the members of the SANDF and also along with the police made their way to South Coast Road, and that's when the crowd started dispersing, and that's when the police also went to places such as Phoenix and also here in the Durban CBD. So there is a lot of police presence, but currently here on the CBD, there's also the fire department and 2 police trucks. When we went to Mobeni earlier on this morning, there was no police presence at that stage. We were standing next to a private security company. So at the moment in Mobeni Heights, there's not a lot of police presence, but here on the CBD, we are seeing some police deployment.
Lethiwe, before you go, I know the sound is tricky for you. What does the CBD smell like and look like? I know that sounds like a weird question, but there looks like there's rubbish strewn, there's burning. It must be a strange, surreal experience.
To be honest, as someone who lives here in Durban, this is such a strange sight for me because we are standing on West Street and this is one of the busiest streets here in Durban. I'm just going to ask Francois to show you exactly what the streets looks like. Basically, the people who are cleaning up the streets are now gathering these bags so that the eThekwini municipality, when they come here to collect all of these bags, their jobs will be made easier. I was speaking to them earlier and they're saying that they're going to continue with these cleanup operations, but this is a very unusual sight. Also, there's not a lot of people walking around and there are no taxis currently. So it's very strange to see some of our busiest streets here in Durban this empty and this filthy.
Lethiwe, thank you so much. Reporting to us from an apocalyptic-looking heart and soul of Durban CBD. Well, as unrest and looting continues in parts of KwaZulu-Natal, our reporter Desan Tatia is up in the sky and has a bird's-eye view of what's left in the province. For an update, let's cross to him. Desan, can you hear me, and what can you see? All right, we're getting...
Annika, I heard you commenting on the visuals that Lethiwe was bringing you there, talking about it looking like an apocalypse. And I think if you take a look at what we are seeing now, you'd agree that it's definitely along the same vein. This is that warehouse that has turned into a hotspot for looting over the past few days. This was where there was a free-for-all. Communities from far and wide made their way to Queen Nandi Drive to steal whatever they could out of the mass discounters warehouse. One of the things I think that caught many people's attention was that this was not necessarily a case of people arriving here on foot, of people not without vehicles. There were luxury vehicles that were lined up, almost reaching the freeway, which is not far from here, waiting to get their share. And now you can still see the smoldering shell of that warehouse, because after all of the looting, it was set alight. There are also still trucks that are lined up on the road. These trucks, interestingly enough, were in some cases used to transport the stolen goods. And if you think that's outrageous, that trucks were being stolen to do that, I'll tell you that forklifts were stolen out of that warehouse and driven along these public roads in an attempt for those that were stealing to try to get their goods out. That is what kind of a frenzy people were experiencing here. This is what's left of it. There's probably, an estimation would be, there's probably millions of rands worth of goods that are still out here. And I was talking earlier to Gareth about what the net effect of that would mean. What it simply means is that if you live in the city and you're now trying to get an appliance, it really limits your options, right? If you're trying to get a TV or a washing machine or something as simple as that, it is going to affect the ordinary citizen who will now not necessarily have that quick access to it, because there are hundreds and thousands of these products that are stored at these big warehouses just slightly out of the city center. And that was normally where they would retrieve the stock from. Those warehouses, not just this one, several others, are completely burnt down. And what that means is that it's going to impact the ordinary person.
Destin, our eyes are wide in the studio here. We're actually trying to just take in the visuals that you're showing us. The sort of, is that litter and debris on the ground that we can see? Is it cars and people? It's tricky to make out from the sky.
Yeah, Annika, that is, it's a combination of litter. It's a combination of the stolen loot, which some of these criminals were not able to get away with. Because I think, it's important at this point that we need to call it what it is. Initially, we used the term looting, and we've been using that term because, but now when you look at it, at the bottom, at its core, it's criminality. We can't gloss over it with these terms, and that's what it is. This is what's left after criminals raided this warehouse. Those are items that were inside the warehouse. Those are vehicles that had come from the premises around here. These are the vehicles that would normally transport these goods and other supplies. That is why this is so important and so tragic at the same time, because it has all but broken the back of the economy here. In fact, just watching this, I can't help but telling you that even if I had to step out of my shoes as a journalist, it's heartbreaking as a citizen, because this is my city. and I'm watching this, and I've never seen anything like this before. You said now that our colleagues in the studio are shocked. Imagine, for those that live here, we normally drive along these roads and getting to stories and getting to shops. These are the roads that we drive along. It'll be a long time before we do that, Annika, I'll tell you that much.
Jason, I've been thinking about you a lot. We all have here because we know you've lived in KZN for years and you're our sort of a point person very much a lot of the time in Durban. Yeah, I was about to ask you, how are you getting access to food, getting on the road, getting fuel? Have you had difficulty, and what about your family?
Well, that is a huge concern, and it's something that I guess we don't often discuss, hey, Annika? It's,
no, I know.
I mentioned to Gareth and Dumelo earlier that we made it to the airport literally by the skin of our teeth. The car was a reserve tank. It was just probably under 20 kilometers. You know, you have to budget about 2 to 3 hours, and still there are no guarantees that you're going to get fuel. There are, I can't remember the last time I've eaten bread. How sad is that? Because we haven't had access to that simple, staple item of food over the past few days. There are groups, there are WhatsApp groups where people are sharing similar concerns, because this is bigger than us. It's not just about me and my family. There are people, there are communities that are sharing exactly those sentiments. There are communities that are far worse off than me. There are some that may not have even had the opportunity to stock their fridges at home. If you work late now, getting food is a difficulty because you can't walk into a store. I mean, let that sink in for a second, Annika. How unreal is that in 2021 that previously, when we could rush into a fast food outlet or even a garage store and buy something, buy a snack, buy food, we can't do that now. And which is why I tweeted the other day that we've been so fortunate that our friends and social media friends that know us through our work have been so kind to us to send us messages of support, because they also understand, and there's a sense of camaraderie that people are willing to share the little that they have to look after the next. And speaking about that sense of camaraderie, you know, we were talking about the tensions in Phoenix earlier, and I received a message just now from a community member there who had just updated me to tell me that there was some kind of temporary arrangement between that community where they are also trying to do their bit to quell those tensions. I spoke earlier about the need for leadership, and now this community member is saying to me that as a gesture of support and camaraderie, they are now assisting the neighboring black community where they can to make up, in a sense, I guess, for the sector of that community which had turned violent, which was completely unacceptable. There's no excuse to target innocent people, no matter what the color of their skin is. So what they're doing is, they're saying, not all of us are like this. Not everyone is this way. So they're trying to build those relationships. He was telling me a story of how they transported a nurse that was trying to get through this so-called, and I say so-called because we are in democratic South Africa, this so-called Indian community to the neighboring community, which is populated by their black neighbors. And they're trying to do that to say, look, it's not a racial issue, this is an issue of criminality. But I guess one would say, Annika, that it's so far gone because tensions had risen so high that so many innocent lives were lost in this process. So many sides to the story, Annika, so many sides to this coin, and I tell you, it'll take us a long time to heal from this, beyond the fact that we can't get simple items. Us as a society, we are divided now, and we need to focus on rebuilding that before we can rebuild our economy and rebuild these buildings that you see.
Jason, that's so sagely put. A quick question before you go. You must have a lot of contacts in the police force as a seasoned journalist. Are you hearing from them about how on earth there were so few police on the ground for at least 3 days while buildings were burning? You saw police standing there, helpless, not able to do anything. 10 rounds each of rubber bullets. What on earth was going on?
Yeah. You know, Annika, I rely on my contacts and I trust them completely. It's taken years to build a contact space, and what they are telling me, and it's not just one or two policemen, it's many policemen that I'm talking to, trusted contacts, that are saying to me that part of the problem here is that the police officers at a station level, in some instances, didn't have access to the basic tools that were needed to control crowds. Because at its core, that's what this is about. You find that initially there were groups of 50 and 100 and 150, and then it swelled, and that's when it got out of hand. So, if a police van gets here with 2 officers in it, and all they have are live rounds, how do they control that crowd? Surely they can't scream at them. They would need crowd control measures, which they didn't have, because other units like the public order policing have access to that. But now, the public order policing couldn't be everywhere. That was what part of the problem is. That's not speculation. The Premier himself has said that he believes part of the problem as to why this looting got so bad is because there was very little police visibility at the beginning. But I want to play devil's advocate here. This is not necessarily a case of apathy then from police. It's not all of the police that have turned a blind eye, and not all of the police deserve the criticism that's been leveled at them, because I'll also tell you that in the long hours that we've been on the road, I've seen police try their absolute best to control crowds, but they were just simply outnumbered. Let's hope then that the SANDF, and with its additional deployment that we're hearing about now, will manage to bring this under control and assist the SAPS, as is their mandate. So lots of things gone wrong, Annika, and I hate to say this, but if this ever were to happen again, can us as a society, can police, can government, can we take lessons from this to ensure that it doesn't get to this level of anarchy?
Jason Tatia showing us a scorched earth from the sky. Unbelievable visuals there coming from KZN.